Yeah, let's start. So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. My name is Tobias. I'm the managing director of For You and Your Customers in Sydney. Together with me today is Carlos Ituria. He is our principal director and data integration lead. We are For You and Your Customers. We offer a wide range of services from data integration, data management, master data management, product information management, but also implementing customer-facing solutions such as e-commerce platforms. Our consulting approach is technology agnostic, so we always try to find the best solution for the specific needs of our customers. And I'm very happy that earlier this year, Carlos has joined our team with his background from working for integration companies like MuleSoft or Oracle. He knows all about the pros and cons of the available data integration platforms available on the market. And Carlos and I've spoken to a numerous number of CTOs, CIOs, head of integrations earlier this year, and we found out that many of them are facing similar challenges. They feel that they don't using their data integration solution efficiently. They think it's too costly, but also they have the need from the businesses to drive AI initiatives and digital initiatives, and AI readiness is a hot topic for them. And this all is happening while they're dealing with budget constraints. And after some analysis and together with Carlos' experiences, we've identified several ways to assist our clients with these challenges. Especially, we figured out 5 key pillars to run an assessment to address these challenges. And with that, I would like to hand over to Carlos so he can deep dive into those topics. So, welcome, Carlos.
Thank you, Tobias. Thank you, and thank you guys for joining this webinar. As Tobias mentioned, I am basically here in Melbourne, and I am the practice director for Australian business around integration, API management, and security. And as Tobias mentioned, even though we have a strong focus around master data management, our main focus is around data integration, API management, and security. And as Tobias mentioned, this is an area that, probably in the last 8 months, we have been very, very focused because we have identified that, it is the same story. Every time you go and talk to a head of integration, especially if it's after that 2-year mark after an integration project started, it's always similar experiences after these 2 years. And so we want to share a lot of what we have learned, a lot of what we have advised our customers, so that you can have some guidelines to apply to yourselves as well. But before I start, let me just tell you a little bit, because sometimes we tend to forget why the integration game it is difficult in an enterprise scale. We may be fans of microservices. We might be thinking that integration is just like 50 Python lines of code connecting to APIs and that's it. But the reality is that is never the case when it comes to real enterprise solutions. With medium to larger organizations, what we always find is that, yes, there might be some modern SaaS applications, a couple of them, and a lot of legacy applications. And many of them don't even have proper interfaces. Some of them don't even have APIs because they were born in a time where APIs did not exist yet. And we have to be thinking about ways to do it with files, different protocols, how to share that information with different users, internally, externally, partners, end users, how to do it across different channels, how to do it across SaaS, different cloud providers, and so on. All of these things at once are making the whole integration projects more challenging than what it should be, the reality. And we all have good intentions. The reality is that when we want to when we start working on a particular project that requires data movement from across or among different applications, we tend to we want to do whatever is the best for the business, and many times we end up achieving or applying quick wins. And there's nothing wrong with a quick win as long as that win remains a win over time. But what happens usually again after this 2-year mark is that those quick wins start impacting the actual speed, agility, and the costs that an organization may be paying or spending or wasting in order to maintain that project. And the reality is that when we have gone and talked to CTOs, CIOs, and head of integrations, basically they keep telling us, it's a licensing model problem, and it is more than that, And we have, in order to understand exactly what the problem is, we realize that is something that we cannot just do within 2 hours on a workshop. That doesn't work, or unless you know very, very clearly what you have to do, what the problem is, and what to do. Then yes, probably it's going to take a few hours. But if that was the case, probably you wouldn't be talking to us. You would be just applying those solutions yourself. The reality is that in order to understand what the real problems are, regardless of what IT vendors you have selected, then it's something a bit more complex. And in order to do it, we started analyzing different things. We started analyzing licensing models, cycles for renewals. We started analyzing architecture patterns. We started analyzing business requirements, new business initiatives that are coming, obviously budgets and so on. And with all of these things, we realized that they are repeated every time. It's exactly the same thing that you have to look again in the next organization and again in the next organization. So we came up to this idea that condensing all of this knowledge into what we are bringing as a 3-step journey, where step number 1, it is basically that foundational assessment that is going to go deep dive into understanding why things are going wrong, what things have deviated from whatever was originally promised or originally designed, and its costs are becoming an issue. We have a lot of customers that tell us, my next renewal is in 6 months. Can you help me to reduce 400K? If that is a problem, then of course we are going to find ways in which you can reduce your cost by improving the quality of your architecture and your solution, so that you can basically have clear indication of the actions that you have to follow up. And that is basically number 2 and 3. Out of that foundational assessment, we basically identify the specific steps that you have to follow in order to achieve X, Y, and Z. And the reality is that X, Y, and Z will be different depending on your organization. But if it's something around reducing costs, improving quality, ensuring that the business gets all of these capabilities, then again, it's going to be very, very easily to quantify these benefits and applying those actions that need to be followed as part of step 2. Then step number 3 is basically, when we were doing this type of assessments, we realized that security is always a problem that no one seems to be thinking until it is too late. So we decided to completely separate security and the whole API security aspect into a separate, very important area that, again, is going to be determine the level of risk in which you are based on that foundational assessment. But let me just unwrap a little bit of what this foundational assessment is. As I said, there are going to be a lot of entries that basically we can see here on the left. All of these entries will start with obviously questions like, can you show me your integration documentation? And the answer is almost always like, what documentation? What do you mean? Like, it's never really something that we can just basically take and learn everything. There's always that need to have to reverse engineer, to understand, to go into the actual implementations of those integrations, to understand exactly what is happening and why some challenges may be happening. But obviously there are going to be a lot of questions around, like, how are you securing these things? What sort of policies are you applying? What are the licensings? What type of technologies you are using for these different things? You might be using different technologies, or you might be using the same technology. And then all of these things, then we are going to use it as a funnel to analyze 5 areas: license model, current capacity and utilization, integration patterns in place, reusability and consolidation, and obviously that risk management and API governance that I mentioned. Out of these 5 areas, there's going to be that report that is basically going to give you that clear indication to apply step 2 and step 3. But just before I basically move too quickly, let me just try to open some of these areas, to unpack some of what is some of the tips, or what are some of the things that we tend to find, so that we can leave you with some tips as well. So let's start with that license model, that first box at the top. And also let me just start by telling you that there are not fundamental right and wrong answers here. Like, depending on the IT vendor that you have selected, there are going to be a difference in which they are going to be charging for their technology. Some of them are going to be around a computing power. Some of them are going to be around a number of integrations or requests. And requests might be, again, mean something different. Might be a combination of the URLs and the method, and it varies a lot. It can be based on consumption-based model. It can be an open source. It can be a mixed subscription or unlimited subscription. But the reality is that regardless of whatever IT vendor you select, that is not the problem. The problem is that you may have chosen the wrong use case and applied to that IT vendor. And then the consequences of cost can be huge. Let me give you a clear example of this. What is one of the most common, or probably the most common architecture pattern that is still used today? And obviously it's not microservices, it is not cloud native, and it is not like event-driven architectures. I'm talking about batch processing. And there's nothing wrong with batch processing. Still a lot of organizations have to move a lot of workloads at some point in time, and they cannot do it transactionally, because the problem of doing transactionally is that it might kill some of those legacy applications. So they have to be very careful when they move this data across. But just now think for a minute that you have selected a capacity-based licensing model, and you are paying for the full processor power of that license. Yet you are using that only 20-30 minutes every now and then, because it's a schedule that probably starts every night, or starts every week, or starts every quarter, or every 6 months. In some cases, they start every year. Imagine having to pay for the full cost of the full computing power, capacity, and keeping it idle for 99% of the time, and just using it every now and then. Obviously, it's very clear example that that's the wrong licensing model for this particular use case. And the reality is that it doesn't have to be just batch processing. The same situation happens if you are just creating APIs that are waiting to be triggered. But that triggering doesn't happen but probably once a day, or once a week. Think about what is the amount of computing power that you are just wasting and paying unnecessarily. So that is obviously based on the use case. You have to know what is the best way that I'm going to get the best value out of my license. The other aspect that I want to talk about, because it's very important, and from here we can understand a lot about an integration project and the business needs, is capacity versus utilization. And this may sound silly if you think about it. It's obvious, right? Like, obviously I need to know how much capacity I have and how much am I utilizing out of that capacity. But trust me, the amount of information that you can gain out of this exercise is so valuable. Just to give you an example, if you believe, and after this assessment, we determine that it's an optimal utilization, or in other words, whatever is your capacity pretty much is whatever you are utilizing, then there's no problem. And let's keep this aside for a minute, because trust me, that is very rare condition to see. I haven't seen it so far. Normally, it's whether it's underutilization or overutilization. Underutilization is very valuable, believe it or not, and actually it's a good outcome. If you find that you are underutilized, then basically this means that if you can do two things. You can save money really in two different ways. One, you can start new projects, and basically you have capacity to basically to use against those two projects. But the other thing that you can do as well that is very, very important is that you have clear evidence to go back to your IT vendor and basically say, you know what, in the next renewal cycle, I am going to basically, I need less, I need half of this capacity. I don't need that much. Or even if it's out of cycle, you can always go and try to negotiate because you are not basically needing the whole lot that you were sold. If it is overutilized, again, that is very, very valuable because what basically you are learning is that it is the great opportunity to basically do an analysis on your actual integration. And here is where basically we can go into analyzing other things like the integration patterns, how much reusability you are applying. Are you using the right approach in order to solve the problems? Let me give you a couple of examples on this so that it is not just theoretical, but basically you can end up with a couple of very concrete tips out of this. There are many cases in which you can create integrations because you think or you hope that integration is going to be reused. But then if you look inside that integration, you realize that basically it is not enriching a lot of information. It is barely not enriching information at all. It is just a pass-through. You are not creating a canonical data model that is going to be shared, or there is no clear evidence that anything is going to be sharing or is going to be consuming this API. If that happens, then trust me, do yourself a favor and just discard those integrations or APIs. You don't need them. You are better without them. Because the reality is that what you are just doing is just creating something that is going to be costly. It is not just going to be costly in the sense of the license that you may be paying, but also it's going to be pricey in terms of the development and maintenance that you have to do in order to keep that thing running. Okay. Another example that I want to just leave you with. In a lot of cases, especially around a business logic, we tend to basically create very fixed orchestrations. And basically they are very hard to change. And again, maybe it's just like hoping that one day someone is going to reuse that orchestration or that business logic orchestration. The reality is that there are better ways, cheaper ways, and more effective ways to create that level of reusability by using other patterns. For example, an event-driven architecture. You know, rather than spending a lot of time creating fixed, hardwired orchestrations in something that is going to be compiled and then it's going to be very, very hard to change, then what if you just create events and then you just create a very smart and agile choreography of ability so that your business can actually apply different rules without necessarily you having to reopen expensive development and testing cycles for changing these hard orchestrations. There are a lot of what we see a lot is as well, many of our customers tend to go very, very specific, creating a lot of APIs. And in a lot of cases, in most cases, that is, again, not necessarily. What if you make a step back and think about your whole solution from a data-centric perspective? So that it's like, what is the data that the business needs at what particular point in time? And then based on that analysis, then we can make that data available. And there are different ways in which we can do it. So trust me, there is going to be a lot we can say, and we normally do, when basically we start saying just one pattern across everything. The other thing that we normally take out of this assessment that is, as I said at the beginning, very important is that aspect of API security. It becomes very, very clear from when we are basically going through this assessment, the level of risk that we are talking about. We have been in conversations with customers where basically they said, close the door, shut the door, close the windows. No one can see this report because literally we can be hacked today, you know? And the reality is that most of the things that we keep reading on the papers are real and they can happen to anyone. And the worst part is that we, whether we like it or not, we as end users of many organizations can end up becoming victims of these attacks. And there's nothing you can do to stop an attack, but there are a lot of things you can do from a technologist point of view to making that attack becoming a data breach. And that's where basically we come from a advice point of view. What I'm going to basically go through right now is basically 3 points. And I just want you to think about these 3 points around API security. If you think that you are coming short in any of these 3 points, then I'm sorry to tell you, but the risk of becoming victims of an attack and data breach are pretty high. So let's start with the first one, enterprise API inventory. You need to have a full catalog of all your APIs as an inventory. And by the way, I don't recommend that you try to do this manually. It is a bad practice. Trust me. What we normally see, and I can bet money on the table, that whatever number of APIs you think you have, the reality is that you have 30 to 40% more. It happens consistently with all of our clients. We always ask them, like, how many APIs do you have? Around 200. And then after the analysis, like, you have actually 355 APIs. And because there are a lot of APIs that did not even know they existed, obviously the protection is going to be very poor. And basically, this is going to open the door to data breaches. The best way to create a full enterprise of your APIs is not by relying on your documentation, because again, that documentation is never the best. It's not around relying on your understanding on how many APIs there must be out there. No, it has to be without human intervention. It has to be identified at runtime. It has to be something smarter that is going to get the real traffic and identify out of the traffic what are the real APIs that exist in your enterprise. And once you know automatically what are all the different APIs that exist, then you can move to the next step, which is uncovering API vulnerabilities. Now you know that you don't have 200 APIs, you have 355 APIs. So out of all of these 355 APIs, you need to have a posture management. Or in other words, you have to proactively have an API security solution that is going to identify automatically API misconfigurations, vulnerabilities, potential risks, and as well as what are the remediation actions that you need to follow in order to close all those gaps and reduce the surface attack. The reality is that any of those conversations that are of those incidents that I just showed you in the previous slide around data breaches, all of those things could have been prevented if you knew before it happened what the risk was and what the resolution and remediation action is. Number 3, you need to have an API security solution that is going to give you an API attack management solution. And again, this is not about having a very, very skilled group of individuals that are going to stop the attack whenever it happens. No, this has to be automated. No human intervention. Your API security solution needs to be able to be constantly 24/7, even while you are sleeping. It has to be analyzing different patterns that might involve a specific attack at any point in time. And without you having to do anything, your API security solution needs to stop those attacks. It has to communicate back to your API gateways and say, stop this traffic. There is an attack going on. And trust me, there are very sophisticated attacks. And having said that, in most of the cases, those situations that you read on the paper, there are not sophisticated attacks. There are things that it's obvious that this is a very clear risk and it was not prevented properly. And basically, I don't want to obviously tell you this, but there is nothing you can do about stopping a cyber attack happening to your organization. It will happen, whether you like it or not. What you can do is to ensure that there is no data breach. So out of like an extension of API attack management, there has to be a post-mortem analysis. So it's basically an ability to say, I stopped my attack, but I still want to see if there was any data breach. And again, your API security solution needs to be sophisticated enough to give you that ability to say, like, no, there was nothing. We stopped the attack just when this was coming, and there was no data that was leaked. Or in a bad situation, guess what? We stopped it, but still 200 of our customer data was breached. And we need to know we know exactly what data when and how and what type of information it had and everything. Again, these are 3 an extension 4 areas that are extremely important. If you don't have any of these areas, again, your risk of becoming an attack is very high. All of these things, again, happen out of this assessment, which is basically this number 1 step here. So what I just want to basically leave you with is a couple of ideas, a couple of thoughts that I just want you to think about. Think about the type of projects that you are running right now. Think if you believe that something is not going well, or something could go better, or that you desperately need to reduce the cost and improve the quality, or maybe there is something that is messy and you don't understand really what it is. We can help you to identify from this foundational assessment and give you very clear indication of step number 2 and a very, very important step number 3 to also ensure that you have a 24/7 API security in place that is always going to give you not only the risk factors, but also stop from attacks in real time. And again, I'm going to go very quickly on this because depending on the type of customer, it's going to be whatever, that's what they want. Some customers don't care about the cost. They just care about the security, or they just care about a specific business aspect that basically allows them to basically move faster. But the reality is what we have found, at least 90%, I can tell you, most customers want to reduce costs and improve the quality of those integrations. And again, that's something we can do very, very easily. That's basically what I wanted to share with you. I did it over 25 minutes. My name is Carlos, as I said. I work with my colleague, Steve Wilson. We are basically based here in Australia. I'm based in Melbourne. Steve is based in Sydney. Please reach out to us because, you know, even if it's just like a conversation that you just want to bounce some ideas, we would be very, very happy to talk to you about what is important for your business. And with this, Tobias, I saw a few questions popping up. I think some of them were directly.
Thanks, Carlos, very much for your insights. We do have a few questions. There is one question from Paul. He's asking, what are the typical cost savings that you have helped save a customer running a large integration project? Can you give some insights about that?
Yeah, obviously, without giving you the names or everything, like we are literally just working with a customer right now. And I think it was within week 3 or 4, we basically were able to reduce around 350K of costs. And then continuing working with them after probably the 3rd month, we were able to reduce an extra 390K of costs. And this is basically a combination of multiple things, a combination of optimization of their existing platform with their existing technology that they're using, but also identifying the different things that they were probably not doing the best way that could be done better with different technology. That's what we call technology diversification. So it's not just the optimization, but the diversification as well. Obviously, companies don't want to have a lot of technologies, but if it's super clear, and we make it super clear when there is a no-brainer that this particular patterns that you are following could be way better with this other technology, and these are the reasons why, and this is the clear indication why, and the cost, you know, with the quantities in how much you are going to save, including obviously not just the license, but also the whole implementation and maintenance, then it becomes a no-brainer. And normally when you're talking to projects and even procurement, and you just tell them, even the CIO, you know, if you follow these actions, you are going to save 300K. Normally they listen because, you know, that's the budget to do whatever is important for the business at that point in time.
Perfect, thanks. Then we have another anonymous question and someone is asking, I'm running batch processes with MuleSoft, so shouldn't I do it? What are the options? Can you share your?
Yeah, look, obviously MuleSoft falls into that category of a processor-based capacity. Like obviously you are paying for certain processor or V cores, that's how they call it. And based on the number of V cores, basically how many APIs you can run. If you think about it, if you are paying for a full V core and you are just using 20, 30 minutes of that power every now and then is probably not the best use of your license. Having said that, it depends, because you might be actually solving a very complex connectivity issue. You know, as part of your batch process, you might actually be doing very complex things and transformations, and that might be okay. So I think it depends based on the situation. I'm more than happy to take this offline and analyze exactly what it is. But definitely, if you are just doing like a rest to rest or even soak to rest, which is the like, you know, 70% of the times when it comes to batch processes, and you are just letting something know and you are using fixed timings, there are better ways, better technologies in which you can probably do it. And maybe it's a combination of both. Maybe you can do the whole batch processing with another technology, and you can use MuleSoft for what it does very well, which is the connectivity aspect of it. So yeah, it depends.
Perfect, thanks. And then the last questions again from Paul. I think you explained the API inventory and API security, that you don't do it manually. And he is interested what technology recommendation you would have for that.
For the API security, in Australia, we partner with no-name security. In my opinion, it is absolutely it covers that full end-to-end of API security, pretty much all the things that I mentioned to you. You know, from a posture management, obviously, it provides different ways to deploy the solution, the architecture. If you have big data sovereignty regulations, you can have their control plane inside your data center, and all the traffic from all the F5s and load balancers and gateways basically gets copied into that control plane. And basically, you just literally deploy it, and you start seeing in the dashboards all the APIs that you have, that all the real APIs that you have at runtime, and it starts analyzing and it starts checking, like, you know, this is not properly secured, the risk is high, and you start seeing red, orange, green, red, and also the posture management telling you how to remediate those security actions. Also no-name security connects with most API gateways. So if you are using Kong, if you are using Flex gateways, if you are using RPGs, I think they have a list of like 10, 15 different API gateways that they can directly connect with and stop an attack in real time. So yeah, that is, in my opinion, one of the best technologies to solve end-to-end enterprise API security challenges.
All right, thanks. No more questions. So we are done for today. For those, I had a few attendees that joined later. We have recorded this session, and we can share the recording afterwards with you. So for those who want to see it in the beginning, and also for the others, if you want to share with your colleagues and so on, please do that. And with that, we would like to thank you for your attendance, and thanks for watching the webinar. And if you have any questions, if you want to reach out to us, we're happy to help you. And with that, we wish you a wonderful day.